Hi, my name is Stephanie Wills, and this is my elementary activities slideshow. First activity is under Standard 1, Mission, Vision, and Improvement. The component is 1.1b. In my own words, this standard says the administrator will include stakeholders to develop a school mission and vision statement that includes data, technology, values, equity, diversity, digital citizenship, and community. The activity that I used for this standard was my YouTube video for the mission and vision. This video describes what a mission and vision statement is and how they can be developed. The video also talks about how the mission and vision statement supports student learning. I chose this activity because it gave me the opportunity to examine our vision and mission statement, and it's important to make sure that your vision and mission statement are addressing your goals and objectives. This activity correlates to this standard because it describes how a mission and vision statement can be designed and makes sure that the statements include information about data, technology, values, equity, diversity, digital citizenship, and community. This activity was completed on March 26, 2022 and took 4 hours to complete. How did it impact me immediately? As an administrator, I needed to know and need to know the mission and vision of my organization so I can lead by example and offer my staff the opportunity to do the same. I also need to keep this information in mind when I am hiring new staff and training new staff so that everyone is working towards the same goal. As I reflect on this activity as an administrator, I would like to make sure that I'm going over the mission and vision statement with new staff as part of our onboarding process. I would also like to put up posters with our mission and vision statement on them so staff can see them frequently. Excuse me. I would also like to keep the mission and vision statement in mind as I am training new staff because they can't follow through with the mission and vision statement if they don't have the right resources and the knowledge, and that is extremely important. Oh gosh darn it, sorry about that. Standard 2, Ethics and Professional Norms. In this standard, I chose component 2.1a. In my own words, the administrator will model reflective practices and establish this as a professional norm. The activity that I used was a summary of reflective practices and articles and a reflective practice worksheet. I chose this activity because the activity gave me 10 activities that I looked at, 10 things that I did for several days, and I had to talk about how I used reflective practice in each one of those activities. I chose that activity because reflective practice is really important, or at least I feel it's really important, and it should be something that you use every day. It is my responsibility to model the use of reflective practice and encourage others to use reflective practice on their own. This activity correlates with this standard because I was actively involved in reflection and modeling it so that it becomes a professional norm. This activity was completed on April 13th, 2022 and took 3 hours to complete. How did it impact me? Reflection is important at any level and is something that I need to model for staff and engage with staff during my time with them. It's also important to understand that you can reflect on an activity before, during, and after. You don't have to wait until the activity is finished to reflect on things. As I'm thinking about this as an administrator in my position, learning is an ongoing process and you have to be intentional about what you are doing and trying to change. I meet with staff once a month individually, and this is something that I would like to continue to focus on and help staff begin to do some reflection on their own. In the future, I'd really like to include a reflective piece to my yearly evaluations with my staff. This may be a question that staff fill out before and after an evaluation to think about their teaching practices, but it's important for me to model reflective practices at what I'm doing and then encourage my staff to do the same. Standard number 3, Equity, Inclusiveness, and Cultural Responsiveness. I chose component 3.3b. In my own words, the administrator will develop policies among teachers and staff that include equitable, inclusive, and culturally responsive practices. The activity I chose for this was the YouTube video, People First Language. That video was about talking about people first language and what it means and why it's important to use that language. I chose this activity in the standard because it's important to understand that words are powerful and how we address people is very important. We want to establish an inclusive culture, and that starts from when we meet people and how we talk about people. This activity correlates with the standard because it is the administrator's job to develop policies that include equitable, inclusive, and culturally responsive practices. And those practices include how we talk to people and how we talk about people. This activity was completed on June 20th, 2022, and took about 4 hours to complete. The way it impacts me now is the way we talk about people can impact how they see themselves and whether they feel included. When we use person-first language, we are focusing on the person first and their strengths. If we are trying to develop an inclusive, equitable, cultural, responsive environment, we need to use language that cultivates that. And as I reflect as an administrator, it's important for me to make sure that my staff are aware of person-first language and what that looks like. This is information that I include in staff meetings and model myself as I am working with children, families, staff, and communities. I think it's also important to talk to staff and to students that it's important to ask people how they want to be addressed. Everybody may want to be addressed in a different way, and by asking people, we can make it more comfortable.
Good morning, everyone.
Sorry about that. Standard 4, learning and instruction. In Standard 4, I chose component 4.1b. In my own words, the administration has designed and implemented strategies for quality, technology-rich, sound curriculum and supports for academic and non-academic programs. This activity I chose was the YouTube video on digital citizenship. I chose this activity because it's important to become digitally literate and know what that means for schools. There are several laws and regulations that need to be followed, such as Children's Online Privacy Act, FERPA, and Children's Internet Protection Act. And there is some information about curriculum that can be used to learn about digital citizenship as well. Why did I choose this activity? I chose this activity because we're using a lot of technology in our schools, and it's important to understand how technology can be used to look at different curriculums and how that can be offered to discuss the different aspects of digital citizenship. This activity correlates with this standard because it discusses strategies to implement technology and gives some curriculum ideas that can help students understand how becoming a digital citizen is important and understand the importance of following safety guidelines. This was completed on April 16th, 2022 and took 4 hours to complete. How did it impact me? As an administrator, I need to understand digital citizenship and how it can impact staff, students, and families. I need to make staff and families aware of the responsibilities of using technology and how they can stay safe when using technology. I also need to be aware of the curriculum that's available to help students understand what's being used and what it means to be a digital citizen. As I reflect as an administrator, it's important for staff to understand how they can support students and families that are accessing technology. There are many ways to support students as they learn about technology, and it's important for them to understand how it can be used, but also understand there are dangers. And I would like that information to be given to new staff during orientation and also to students. I think it's very important information. I did another component of Standard 4, 4.3c. In my own words, the administration looks at data from formative and summative assessments and uses that information in educational planning. So this activity is my quarterly report that I share with our LICC meeting, which happens quarterly. We are a Part C organization, and as part of a Part C organization, you have to be a participant in a local interagency coordinating council. This council meets quarterly and is a group of partners for all the communities that the Part C organization participates with. And so this meeting is where I, as the Part C coordinator, share information about our IFSPs, about referrals, about data, about how many children we're serving, and I share all that information with our LICC group of partners. I chose this activity because our data collection looks a little different than a typical elementary school. Like I said before, we host the LICC meeting quarterly, and this information is shared during that meeting. Our local LICC is called the Children and Families Network, and like I said, we meet quarterly in January, April, July, and October. At this meeting, I share all this data, and our partners help collaborate with our Part C program and really make sure that we are supporting the communities in the way that we need to be doing that. So this activity correlates with the standard because the administrator has to look at the data that's collected from all the areas listed about and then use that information in our planning and how we're going to provide support to each of our communities. Like I said, we meet quarterly and each meeting's an hour, and I usually put all of this data together every quarter. So it takes about, in the last year and a half, I've done over 16 hours of working on this information. The impact that it has on me is it's important as an administrator to look at the data and interpret many different forms of data and be able to use that information in educational planning. It's important for me to look at our information and be able to see if we need to do more child finds or to get more referrals. The information also lets me know what our numbers look like in each community, because we may need to focus on a certain community if we're not reaching the number of children that we'd like to be reaching. And as I reflect on this process as an administrator, being able to look at data, interpret the data, and then make decisions on how to move forward is extremely important. As a Part C organization, we have to have an interagency coordinating council that consists of community partners and parents to look over our data and hold us accountable for our services. So I also use this information with staff to talk about the communities that we may need to focus more on and to get flyers and information out to those communities. So this is a really important, very, very important piece of what we do as a Part C organization here at Russell Child Development Center.